matter who you are, where you are, what your choices have been, and what karmic timelines and contracts you have journeyed, the light is calling for the reunification of all aspects of life in this realm now. It is calling for the cleansing of all polarities. It is calling for the rising of all sacred heart centers now. All are being summoned home to the greater light now.
Hi, and welcome everybody to Whole Soul Mastery's Sounds of Circles Heart Sharing in the Round. I'm back again today with Renee Tainter, Caroline Chang, and Sharon Ramesbottom. And I'm Marie Moeller, and I'm an author, an intuitive, and a host of these podcasts. And I'm so excited. Number one, thank you all for joining me today. And I could feel coming through me this energy of connecting with sacred texts. I'm feeling guidance to myself read and connect with more sacred texts. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. But I invited each of you to talk with me today about a sacred book, one of your favorite books, something that you've received, you just really connected with, and that there was a certain kind of wisdom that resonated with you. And I just want to see it even before we get started, is that to me, that these sacred texts, these sacred books, wisdom and knowledge are the same frequency as truth and light. And truth is light and light is truth. And these are all frequencies of God, right? And so it's no wonder that I was feeling sacred texts, but very quickly I'm feeling God, because I'm feeling God energy in everything. And so I wanted to share, of course, I'm like the Library of Alexandria in my house. You can't even imagine the number of bookshelves. In every room I have bookshelves that are full. And some people who've even passed on and transitioned, they like gave me their libraries, literally. They gave their libraries to me and my partner. So we've been to IKEA and we have bookshelves mounted to walls in anywhere where there's a space. And I know we might even be lifting off the page as we move into this quantum change, and we might not even need all of these books. But just having them around me, it's like I have songs of ancient wisdom through time is like singing through my house all the time. So I'm a book person and I'm an author, I guess. It all goes together. So of course I want to share these two very quickly, are two of my very favorite of books that I have written. Leonard's Song, which is all about our full self-expression, and one particular chameleon that was trying to be like his chameleon tribe and camouflage himself, but he just couldn't do it, as you can see by the cover. So he inspired his chameleon village to live their full bright light and to shine brightly. And this is a story of Color the Magic, which was really my own personal journey as a star being, believing in the magic as a small child, but watching and growing up in a world where nobody believed, like truly, in the magic of the world that we live in. And it was around Christmas time, because I really fully expressed my belief in the magic at Christmas. And having a neighbor, another childhood friend, say, there is no magic. There is no Santa. There is none of what you're all skipping and all happy about. It's not real. And I remember thinking, oh, I have to help her because, it is so, so real. But of course, I talked to my parents and they were like, well, the whole story of Santa and everything is not, it's a nice story. And so I went through a period of time where I had to make sense of that. And I tell that story in The Color of Magic, of losing a sense of the magic or tucking it away deep inside and having to live in a world of gray for a little while. And so this is The Color of Magic and The Magic of Color book, two of my favorites. And then I just would share, this is a book, I have so many favorite books, I didn't even know which one to pick, but this is one that I love. I just love the title even. Yes, You Can Change the World by Aman Matwani. It's a beautiful book. It's all about my memory of this book. I haven't read it in a long time, but I believe it's about someone who believed in the gift of every person. And he was in a job. This is my memory. I don't even know if this is fully what he talks largely about. My memory of this book is that there were people, he was a manager in a company, and he got sent a lot of the people that nobody knew what to do with, the employees that nobody else could manage, right? They got sent to him. And he was, and I remember him saying, like, why do I have all these people coming to me? And what he would realize is some of these people, they were either disruptive or destructive at work in whatever the task was that they'd been given. So they weren't fitting in very well, and they were causing more chaos than they were helping. But he decided to see that while they might not be a good organizer and they would be in the role and the job of organizing, they don't have those skills. It's like their skills aren't being utilized and they're not being valued for what their gifts are. So while they might have been really not very skilled in whatever job they were in, they were exceptionally gifted in some other way. And so my memory of this book was that he started on a journey to see the gifts in everybody, and really believe and look at them and lovingly see them in the gifts that they are. And he was changing the world, right? By just being that, just doing that. Love that book. I'm curious what you guys have. Do you have any particular book that was impactful in your journey at some stage in your awakening process? Something that touched you deeply that you quote from, or you look back to, that really gives you an anchor. It grounds you or it inspires you. Would any of you like to share?
Well, I can pipe in here. First of all, I love your books, Marie. I love your books, and they speak to my heart. And so, and I share them with people, and they love them too. So, thank you for bringing those into the world. Um, there's two books that came out when you had asked us about this topic, and one was the Celestine Prophecy, because years and years ago, that was gifted to me. And when I read it, I was able to experience a window of time where I was love. And I got to be that for a couple of months. And it showed me where we are going. And this was about 25 years ago. It was a long time ago, if not longer even. But I was given that gift so I could see what it was that we were going to realize. And it has taken me a long time to become what I was so graciously gifted. And I'm still in the process, as we all are, because we are love, and we're just remembering that. And so that was a beautiful gift to me. And I realized that throughout my life, these books, these gifts, were always given at the appropriate time. And so one of the things I would just like to add is that to be open to receive possibly a message or a gift from somebody who is giving this to you. And even if it's not at the time of the gift, you might at some point pick it up and then receive the message that they had for you, and I'm very aware of that. I'm very aware of books that are recommended to me or gifted to me. And it might take me a while to get to them, but I do, and it's always a gift. The other books that have really empowered me and connected a lot of dots is channeled texts from Paul Selick, and he channeled Melchizedek. He calls them the guides, but it is the order of Melchizedek that is coming through. And they are higher dimensional beings, I believe, of Christ's light. And they're gifting this teaching to whoever is drawn to it. And the first book is called I Am the Word. And it is a beautiful text. It is a living text, and it is an energetic gift. And when you choose to read their books, they work with you, and then they offer you a language that you're able to use to help you vibrationally. So they really teach you in ways of energy, and then of course in wisdom, and all basically moving us into our oneness and our divine essence. And so very much they bring you back into your heart where the divine spark is, and where Christ consciousness is, and where we are becoming, what we are becoming. And so those books, the first one being I Am the Word, Paul Salik is the channel, Melchizedek is the guides, and they connected a lot of dots for me. And I'm very grateful for them. And I continue reading their books and listening to the live streams. And they work with me as they do with everybody, actually. So
Yeah. Thank you,
I
Sharon.
just to feed right into Sharon, I've had Paul as a guest, and I can put my hand right on the book.
yes,
The Book of Truth, yes, and Paul gifted this. Okay, I am the word. Okay, Paul gifted, because this was his latest book when I had him on. Maybe I can't remember. It was 2016, 2017. But Paul and he was in New York at the time. Do you know? Are you aware that he just bought a house in Hawaii?
Maui.
Yes. Oh, he out the. It's a beautiful house. Because I said to Paul, I said, okay, I wanted to go visit you while you were in New York, which is only an hour and a half away, and I never got there. But now you're in Hawaii. I'm definitely coming to visit you. Yes, I love Paul. I love Paul. An amazing, just amazing channel, amazing information. Actually, as far as books now, Marie was saying, I have a house load of books for the past 6 years because, I mean, I've always had books before I started my show. But now because people want to be on a guest on my show, they always send me every 2 or 3 books a week come in the mail. You know, so I'm really got a house full, and I have my neighbor will borrow them. I become the library of the block because I have so many books. But yes, Paul is amazing, amazing. I think for me, it wasn't not necessarily, it wasn't a book that really changed, that was a key to my awakening. It was a documentary, What the Bleep, but it was one sentence that inspired my awakening, which was, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lynn McTaggart. She was
Yes.
also a guest on my show, but her one sentence was, the biggest problem in the world is the illusion of separation. And that one sentence woke up something inside of me. It wasn't an intellectual awakening at all. It was a heart and soul knowing that that was the truth, and knowing the oneness. And when I understood that, when I woke up to the truth of oneness, it changed my life completely. And like the book you were talking about, Marie, about the gentleman who had this job where all these people were coming to him, but he was able to see them for their unique gifts, and see, well, they were put into the wrong job. That's why they weren't successful there, because that wasn't their skill set. So I try my best in every now moment to see everyone as that divine essence of God, and their uniqueness and their unique gifts, and love them exactly. I think the best thing anyone can do is love someone for exactly who they are. Whether you agree, it's not about agreeing with their religion or their philosophy or their politics. It's not about agreement. It's about knowing who they are, and they are perfect as they are. Now you can share your truth. It may resonate with them, it may not. They can share their truth, and that may resonate with you, or it may not. It does, none of that matters. What matters is recognizing everybody as a sovereign divine being of light, an aspect of source and an aspect of all that is a holographic aspect, meaning all of God is in that person, just like all of God is in you. So I
Beautiful.
think, so I try to keep it that simple.
Mhm.
Yes.
That's
Wow.
beautiful. Thank you, Caroline. That was beautifully expressed, really.
Is beautiful. And I just wanted to say it's interesting because I think that's a really important point about the illusion of agreement, the illusion that we have to agree. That illusion is what is part of what keeps us so separated.
Mhm.
But really, the unity is in the disagreements and loving ourselves as the God selves that we are, and allow ourselves to not agree. And really, that's another way of saying allow ourselves to have all these different perspectives,
Mhm.
right? That's the richness of creation, is diversity and the diversity of perspectives. And I adore Lynn McTaggart and
Yes.
and her messages. And sometime we should talk about, I think one of her, does she have a new book out called The Power of Eight? Or is
Yeah,
it?
Something like that. Yeah,
it's
she does. She has several. And also a post I just posted this morning, because this was on my weighing on me this morning as I woke up, kindness. And I posted this morning, the true meaning of kindness is when you are kind all of the time to everyone, everywhere. It's not just when you're kind to those that agree with you, or those that do what you tell them to do, or because I've been experiencing that lately where I have not been getting the kindness from others that I normally get. It's like hit or miss because of my belief is different from their belief or something of that nature. And I'm like, wait a second. I try in every now moment to be kind to everyone, regardless of what they believe. It doesn't have to be my belief. But I'm like, wait a second. So I posted that this morning on Facebook, that in my social media. The true meaning of kindness is when you're kind all of the time to everybody, everywhere. That is true.
beautiful.
Kindness is not selective. That's what I put.
Wow.
It's also, that's beautiful, Caroline, and very true. And we forget that. We do forget that. And also what's coming up for me, which is new, and was not in my purview really, but I've been hearing it, and that is of respect. And I think that we see respect, we've used respect in a kind of a paradigm that, all these people have these set of circumstances, and therefore we should respect them. We should respect people of education, or we should respect people who are wealthy, or we should respect people, whatever. And that's not the case. It's not the case. All beings deserve our respect. Their authentic expression deserves to be heard and acknowledged and appreciated as part of expansion of the whole. And all of these nuances, these different perspectives, they expand God. It's like a painting, the more texture, color, nuance, it just creates so much beauty, right? Because it's not just, one shade. There are many shades. And we don't, and that's sort of also with agreement, if we don't agree with somebody, we withdraw our respect. It's like they're wrong, we're right, they're wrong, and there's separation, right? The wall comes down, we're now separate. And if we allow ourselves to stay open and just respect everybody for just being who they are, then I think our oneness is easier to stay in. We're not putting up the boundaries, and we're not feeling we have to defend ourselves, and that's what it is. Because we're worried, if they don't agree with us, then, then we're less than, and nobody's better than and less than. We're just,
Of
we
God.
just are.
Very true. Very true.
Yes. Renee, yeah.
So yes, I so agree with you about kindness, Caroline. And I was thinking unconditional kindness. And one of the things that led me into that is one of my most favorite sayings from Wayne Dyer. That is, it's so deep and profound that it takes a little bit to figure it out. And that is, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Mhm.
And that, and in my journey of, being on the airplane and learning all the stuff that I learned, I changed how I saw people. I saw their human side and their divine side, and the realization of who people are lifted me up out of what I called the ego mindset. And you're up there higher where it's lighter, and that's where the heart connection is. And so that has been one of my biggest sentences. I don't remember what book it came from, but it's just loaded with you. It's one of those phrases that if you keep thinking about it, it's alive and it keeps expanding you and expanding you. And like you said, Sharon, that you, when you're there and you can see how looking at people changes how you see them from a higher perspective, then you do have that respect. Because if you really know that everybody is a divine human, I used to, this is how Spirit explained it to me. So I'm a flight attendant on a flight and I'm meeting a person for the first time. Well, that's where they are in their movie. This is where I am. I don't need to know anything about their past, their history, or whatever to love them where they're at. I just love them because it's a brother that I haven't met yet. In fact, Spirit told me two things. If you could remove the mask from everyone, you would be surprised at how dear they are to you.
Beautiful.
And so that, when I heard that, bam, my heart opened up and I just surrounded the whole world, because then Spirit told me, I was walking in Hong Kong and I was, kind of depressed, and, there's so many people that you're just being bumped around, and the air conditioning from above is dripping down on you, and you're doing this. And I stopped at the stoplight and Spirit said, these are the people you've been praying for your whole life. And a stranger is just family you haven't met yet. So you hear stuff like that, it goes straight to your heart. And, and so I have compassion, and it took me a while to learn that. What is this that I'm feeling? Because I wasn't judging, because I changed how I saw things. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Nothing changed except you changed your perception. And ever since we first heard this from you, Caroline, unity in diversity. And that comes to me a lot. Doesn't mean it's always easy in certain situations in the beginning, but it is a beautiful energy to be in when you know that doesn't matter what's going on with people. You love them and you have compassion. And, I want to just have my magic wand and go ding and just heal everybody. But I see this time that we're in is that people are changing how they see things. There's a lot of people I know that are cleaning house in their mind, their heart, their lives, and seeing things in ways they didn't before, me included, which and I think that's because of the light. The light is like super intense and present. I mean, it always has been, but I can't remember who I was listening to the other day that said, we've heard about as a galaxy where we're moving into the great central sun or whatever the energies of whatever. And we've never been there before. And there's just all this stuff going on. And I think a lot of people are changing the way they look at things, and it's changing things for them. And so that isn't really a book, but it did come out of Wayne Dyer's book. I don't remember what it was, but it's very profound to me.
Yes.
It's being led by your heart.
Yes. Yes.
It's the perspective of the heart that
Yes.
is open. When you were talking, you know, you were just explaining so beautifully heart consciousness, that being able to witness the divine in everybody, and we're just open and loving, and it is through the heart, right? We're not processing or analyzing or thinking it, we're just being it.
And feeling it. And so,
Feeling it.
And I also realized that once you've been in that space of the heart, I mean, really in the space where you are so connected, you become your heart. You don't even worry about what you're going to do. There were a lot of times on the airplane when I first started really living in my heart, that my heart said, go over there and put your arms around that lady. You know, and I think I was sharing that with Sharon the other day, but this lady said, there was a seat next to her. She was crying. Right there by the bathrooms, I grabbed some Kleenex, sat down next to her, wrapped her in my arms, and just held her. And she continued to cry and grabbed onto me like this. And it was like I was receiving at the same time I was giving.
Yes.
Because in that moment, that's what my heart wanted to do. My heart saw something, responded, and because I connected, and because it's my intent and will to live from the heart and be the love and be the change, I just didn't even hesitate. And I don't hesitate now. And I know that there's people that get embarrassed. You can't do that. I just do it. And people, I've done it in supermarkets and post office, you know, wherever, where your heart, I'm not sitting there going, okay, what am I going to do? No, I'm just living my life, living in the moment. And my heart goes. And the example that Spirit gave me was, you just put your groceries in the car and you look up and the little lady just dropped all her stuff on the parking lot. You don't lean up against the car and go, should I help her? No, you're like halfway across the parking lot before you even realize what you're doing. And Spirit said, that is being led by the heart. So, like you said, Sharon, there's no like analyzing, oh my God, look at the consequences. No, you're like, it's literally, you're doing that. And it's
very, very true what you're saying, Renee. But I'm smiling because many of the governors have mandated as, no, you can't do that. You can't live by your heart in COVID-19. You got to stay 6 feet away and masked and all that. So I'm smiling because the governors have mandated you can't live by your heart anymore. You know, but there
are other ways to reach out.
Yes,
there are. But you know,
I'm being facetious.
Yeah, but I know, but I hear you. But there are, Renee, I would have loved to be on your plane. Hey,
and I was rascally because people like that too.
I know, I would have loved to be in the energy for as many hours that you could possibly, once you're on the plane, when we have you, you know, what a gift. And so many people. Could you imagine all the people that were able to bathe in your energy, Renee? What a gift you gave, like countless people. Amazing. I'm just in awe, really.
And the love you put out into the atmosphere that you literally did into this Earth's atmosphere that's still journeying, you know, because energy is never destroyed. It can only be transmuted or celebrated. So here we are, maybe years or decades later, celebrating the work you were doing in this beautiful way. And it's still touching the world, and we're just touching it again to send more ripples of that.
Well, I want to say that it's my heart that has me do things that I used to tell people, I do that kind of for me. Like when I would love on everybody on the plane, I would, you know, like when we're landing, I would say, okay, I'm surrounding you with love. And that love, when you get off the plane, is going to stay with you.
Mm.
Because I realized I'm a creator.
Mm.
And at first I would have, well, you know, you really can't. Oh, yes, I can.
You are a creator.
It's my
Yes.
words, it's my intent. And so I send those people home with that love. And there's those people, it's still there because I said so.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Yes, very true. Yes.
I'm not going to see you anymore, but then how about if I just set this up? Like a prayer for the planet. And then I was saying it every day and there were lots of words. And I finally said, you know what, Holy Spirit, this is what I'm going to set up. Here's the prayer. It's for every man, woman, child, blade of grass, animal, whatever. And every breath I take in and out, that's the prayer. That's because, it's really wordy and I don't want to say it every day. But then all I have to do is refer to that moment and send it out.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Right. And we are these powerful creators. And when you all were talking, I was definitely feeling that energy of the heart center. And yes, I'm just going to acknowledge, but I'll bring it back, that we are living in a 3D realm of duality. And we are powerful creators in that duality, right? And when we're talking about the heart center and us being these powerful creators, this energy of self-transparency is another aspect to me of the heart's consciousness, because it's the unity in diversity inside us. We have a lot of diversity inside ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there's this energy. We've heard many political leaders talk about transparency and all kinds of things, but we're coming into a time of quantum change where this transparency is becoming our new way of being. And that transparency shines a light on truth, and it shines a light on kindness, and it shines a light on how we're being and what we're doing. Our words are important because that's also some of our wand of how we're creating our lives. But I was just going to read one little segment from my book, Cosmic Wealth, because I wanted to bring it also to this understanding of truth and sacred wisdom and the heart consciousness and the light and the duality game and the governors who are saying separate, separate, separate. It's all part of this. But I think a lot of in these epic changes we're going through, it's getting real with ourselves and it's going into our heart centers. And there are this understanding of the light is exposing. It's exposing things that have been outside the light, that have always been a part of the light, but in separation consciousness, living outside of that. People on your plane, Renee, if they were going through some things that you could see in their faces, in their tears, in their stress, they were somewhere in kind of the separation or the stress of the 3D matrix. You recognize that with your heart center, and you were able to be transparent in your kindness and envelop them, right? And shower them in your love. And they were able to receive that. And I think this may be something I just want to seed in our conversation too. My chapter title is called The Transparency of Truth. And we can also say the transparency of our hearts, the transparencies of love. I think we're moving into a time of full transparency. And so that's why we're seeing so much change, because things have not been transparent, right? They have not been transparent. But this is I just feel like this is really beautiful. And so for as far back as I can remember, I have always been a barometer of truth. It seemed to be sewn into my energetic fabric somehow, like Peter Pan and his shadow. Only what was sewn to me was the light of truth. I tested this trying once to consciously lie as a child. as a small child. I suffered so terribly for it that I turned myself back in. I told him myself, okay, because I was suffering so terribly. I was like 6, okay? And so facing the consequences of telling an untruth was so much more acceptable to me than living the experience of the lie. Because the truth is that truth often brings the experience of profound inner peace. Truth is the vibration of source energy. Whatever the true truth is in your experience for you or for anyone, when we experience it, it flows with the pure light and unconditional love of source energy within us.
Mhm.
Beautiful.
Yes, 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 yes.
Right? And that's that space, like that's truth to me is expansive. It's like, love expanding is really what you were, Renee, in that moment. You were love expanding on the plane. And I know you've flown in some very big planes. Like, would you say, I mean, how many passengers sometimes were, in
400
your
plus crew, 420.
400, 420 people in just
Wow.
one flight? And you realize when we look at books like this, yes, you can change the world. You were this. You were in your gift. And I also love to appreciate when we are in jobs or we are doing our purposeful work, when we are in our talents and we're touching lives. Renee, you were perfectly positioned to be that flight attendant. Somebody else might have been a flight attendant for like 2 weeks and be like, oh, this isn't for me. But God positioned you there so that you could also, and you led staff, you were in charge of things. It's amazing how we do get positioned. And I've tried to position myself in a number of jobs over the years. They just don't work out for me because I can't do that. I'm just creating all the time. And so maybe that's why I resonate with some of the characters in this book, because if you put me in sort of like a shelf stocking situation, or I've been a receptionist or an administrative assistant, or I even worked as a therapist for a number of years. And I just, every time I was always pushing the boundaries of the boxes, and that didn't always work out well for my employers, but it didn't work out well for me to stay in the box either. So, I always can really respect, and I just, with awe, I see when God does perfectly position, you can see some people, you were that, working for the airlines in your role. And my partner was that in the prison system, affecting so many people's lives. And we all do this in every way, whether we're shopping and somebody drops their groceries and our heart leads us over there. We are living our purpose because our purpose is our frequency, and our frequency is God, right? And when we
So
can
true.
get self-transparent enough, when we can allow the discomfort of our own discordant beliefs, our own judgments, when we experience people judging us, right? And we can still find what you're saying, Caroline, is kindness all the time. And I'm in that position now. I have some people in my life that, we're all going through things. And I have some people in my life that are close to me that are in that process of judging me and who I am. And there is that call of like finding grace, seeing where I have any response to push back or resist or avoid or all those things in myself. That's part of self-transparency and knowing ourselves and getting into the truth of what's going on. And I just want to say one last thing, that Patrick Chevalier, he's done a couple of podcasts with me. He's a heart math practitioner. And he led me through an exercise recently that I think he was using some of the insights from heart math, but this was his own thing that he'd kind of put together. And in that experience, he had me walk through something where I had a conflict with somebody. And I used the experience of a situation with a neighbor a number of years ago at a property line issue. And the tires of my car had touched his property line. And he needed me to know that. And we've been neighbors for a long time. So that was my example with Patrick in this. And his process, you guys should listen to that sometime. It really helped me because one of the ultimate things that Patrick had me do after he walked me through what was the conflict, what was my experience of the conflict, then what was my neighbor's experience of the conflict, what were his intentions and what he was communicating to me. And then I got back in my body and Patrick asked me, what was my original intention, right? When I had that experience with him, what was I trying to communicate in that experience? And it really helped me because I never really had thought about what my intention was around the issue of the conflict was. I actually was trying to pull my car over so I wasn't turning around his driveway. I don't know if this is making sense, but the property lines are tight here and they're kind of weird. And we've got a lot of shared spaces and woods, but my tire was on his property in the dirt and he noticed that, and that became a big thing. But see, but see, this is a good situation because it was a good example. And when Patrick led me through that, I could feel still I could feel it now, a little bit of irritation. I could just have to admit there's some irritation there of like, really? That? Because, and I can go on and on, but I own part of his driveway. It's just the property lines. He drives on my property every day and I don't say a thing. But my tire touched his property. And I can't do that anymore. And we've been neighbors for like 15 years at this point.
Yeah. Yes.
When Patrick took me through this exercise, nothing had changed inside me like it did when I went through that with him, because he had me go back, because I can still talk about the property lines and you can find respect and kindness of like, I do respect that is how he perceives and he needs to live his life with very clear boundaries. And everybody else in my cul-de-sac lives a little differently, but I can respect that. But I hadn't taken the next step that Patrick showed me of, if I still had some residual feelings of agitation or tension or whatever it might be, what was my original intention? And I had never gone back to that before. And what I felt was, I had never talked to myself this way, but my original intention was to make this easier for him because I knew the property line was such an issue that I was pulling my car over and I was having guests over. They were going to be turning around more in his driveway. I was actually trying to help that, but he couldn't see that. And I think that was a deeper underlying irritation I had inside. So we can, and Patrick did a good job because I started to answer the questions, but my neighbor this and my neighbor that, and he said, no, but what was your intention? What were you feeling? And I went back to say, I was trying to create more ease and flow, and it created more discord. Mm-hmm. And so when my original intention, it got clouded in all the other stuff. I think that's why I was still carrying some residual tension, because that good intention couldn't be seen and it didn't create the outcome that I was trying to achieve. And it actually created the very outcome that I was trying to prevent. And I think this happens in people's lives. Yes, please.
I want to jump in on both things you said. Yes. The first part about jobs.
Yes.
Because I left the corporate world over 20 years ago. It's the same thing with you. I had so many different jobs that I was excellent at. I just was. But it was like not me. But I realized that each one of those jobs I got something from. I always I worked a job and I had young kids. I was a single mom, had to bring in some income. So I worked these jobs till I could, to the point where I had to break out of the box, and I would quit and then go to another job, and same thing. But each one of those jobs, I realized I got something very valuable for later on in life. But I had to leave the corporate world 20 years ago. And that's when I started teaching piano lessons full time and things of that nature. So, but I realized, I couldn't stay in the box, in that corporate box, but I got something valuable for my purpose. From each of those jobs, I got something valuable for my purpose. So that was the first thing. And then when I have two neighbors right now. That's why I wrote that whole thing about kindness this morning, thinking of two. I live on a cul-de-sac too, and I've been on this cul-de-sac 30 years, longer than anybody else on this cul. Yes, I'm the original person on this cul-de-sac. They're building a house right now across the street. But and there's two neighbors right now that are not being kind to me for two different reasons. You know, I'm like, wait a second, I'm kind to you guys all the time. And I ended up texting both of them separately this morning. Okay, the issue you have with me is not with me, it's with you. Okay, because it's like, I'm not doing anything. You guys, I'm not doing what they want me to do. Okay, one is mad at me because I didn't vote. Okay, so you're mad at me because I didn't vote, really? And then the other's mad at me because I don't believe in this COVID stuff. Okay, so they're both mad at me for two different reasons. I'm like, wait a second. You guys are trying to get me to do what you want me to do. I have my own mind. I'm going to live and speak my truth. Period. So the issue you have is not with me, is with you. Okay, so it's the same thing like with your neighbor. I mean, you had good intentions. Him getting upset that your wheel was on his property line, all of that is within him. So I just let them know this way. Hey, it ain't on me. I'm taking the boomerang and throwing your upsetness right back at you, because that's where it belongs. It doesn't belong with me. And I've seen you guys love and light, but I'm not in this mess. You know?
Yeah, and you know, I can relate to that. And one of the things I learned when I was learning about my heart is exactly what you said, Marie. You know what your intentions are. And so
Yeah.
I learned that my intentions and my will is actually my foundation,
Mm.
because I trust my heart. I trust the intentions of my heart, what my heart is about, what love is about. I trust all that, so that, because I used to doubt everything I did, because if the other person had a negative response, then I would want to take responsibility for it.
Mm.
And as I was learning about this, my heart would say, well, what is your intention? Well, it's always the same. Do the loving thing. Do what would love do now was my one liner long before what would Jesus do now. And so I began to really trust that. But the difficulty comes when the other person doesn't see it. And even if you try to explain, oh, I've got company coming, and I was trying to avoid that line or whatever, they may not see it even after you say it. So then I learned that I had to really rest
Mm.
in that truth of my intentions. That's what became my foundation for me to let go of having to take responsibility for how other people responded to me. And that's a big truth, is that I am only responsible for what I put out and how I respond. I'm in charge of how I interpret things and how I respond. And I'm not in charge of the other person. And I have said this to many people, you can tell anybody anything at any time about any subject if you lay down a red carpet of love. Like this might be difficult for me to say or for you to hear, but I just want you to know my intentions are good, and this is what I want to communicate, so that you are not just going to blurt something out, right? And so when you said, Marie, he just didn't see your intentions, and he didn't see that you did care, you were trying to honor the boundaries. And then, oops, if you are honoring it and you have the intentions and you have the high integrity and everything, it doesn't mean it's going to be received. And that's another really big lesson, that you just have to let go and say, I know my intentions, I know my heart. I have said that to so many people. I know my intentions, I know my heart. I'm sorry that you don't see that, or you didn't, that you responded the way you did.
That
That's
is
so
so,
true.
go
That's
ahead.
so true. Yeah.
I just thank you all. There's was a lot of beautiful sharing here, and I might have to listen to this again because it was all really. Um, I think this all illustrates so beautifully where we are energetically, which is moving into our sovereignty. And the thing is we've been very tethered with caring what other people think of us, even feel about us. And that stymies authentic expression. It doesn't allow for us to fully express who we are. And I think we're at a place now where we're all learning how to basically navigate the unknown. And so we're going to have this, and we're going to have to keep untethering ourselves to what other people really think or feel or say about us. And we're going to have to unconditionally accept them for how they're expressing. And then we, as you both, so all three of you beautifully said, just stay within our integrity and in our hearts. And then I think our storylines, because we're all in a story, everybody's learning from, right? So you're part of their story. And so you don't know what you're playing. Maybe they need, Marie, maybe he needed to figure out a way of handling his control. And you said, okay, I'll show up and I'm going to play this part. And, we can go, hassle back and forth. I'll learn about my intention. You'll learn about your control issues, right?
Right.
So we're all playing these roles for each other. We're gifts for each other. And every time there's a conflict, there's an opportunity. There's the diamond there. There's the gift there where we can learn something from it. But we keep thinking that we have to all agree, and we're not going to agree because then we would be so limited, and we're not. We're limitless. And so we're going to keep expanding, and then we're going to keep expressing, and there's going to be, uncomfortable. We're going to be uncomfortable, right? As we spread our wings and everybody's flying, we're going to have to, yes, honestly, we're going to be bumping into one another, maybe, we're going to have to learn how to be these. And so we're going to have to keep trusting our hearts. As you said, Renee, you know your heart, you go into your heart. We have to keep seeking truth, the foundation of truth. We have to lead with love, and we have to accept grace, right? Because God is what we're here to be. And so I think that all of these things are playing out in our lives because we're learning how to untether, like shrug it off. You got to shrug it off, and allow. It's not easy because if we're having a hard time doing it, can you imagine?
Imagine others that aren't awake. We're all awake. Imagine people who are not awake. Okay, you're right.
Well, and also who's still in their mind struggling, figuring out how can they do this to me? Why would they do this to me? When they don't realize they're not doing it to you. They're learning through their stories. You're just part of the story. They're not doing anything to you, And so it really is a challenging and yet a beautiful time for us to just be an opportunity to
Amazing
learn from
time.
it. Yeah.
Amazing time to be alive, and
Yeah, it
especially
is.
to be alive and awake. I would not want to be here now and not awake, but to be awake, it's amazing, amazing time. Yes. Yes.
It is an amazing time, and everything that you all have shared has just been extraordinary. And it's amazing how these pieces of wisdom come in through the books we've talked about today. Patrick's exercise, which was pretty phenomenal, I have to say. It's something I'm using and remembering. And I actually changed my response to someone who's going through some judgment right now with me
Right.
because of that exercise with Patrick. And it really helped me see my good intentions and also see this person's good intentions. Because in everything, that's what Patrick said, in everything, it's hard to imagine sometimes, I know, but in everything, if you go back to its root, there was a good intention. And I think my neighbor, just as an example, I think was trying to protect his family. I think there's a protection that comes out and is expressed. And it helped me because he is operating from that lens. And that's the behavior that came out of his lens of perception. And I was also operating out of a good intention. I think we both had good intentions, and yet conflict was what manifested for the gifts that we each needed to have in that experience. And so maybe for the last thing I wanted to seed in this conversation is to say, there are many people who would identify as being awake who will listen to this podcast. There are many people who see themselves as a light warrior, light worker, somebody with Christ consciousness. And I think as this world that's so out of balance with this duality game in the matrix we've been living for so long, in the cycles and the conditioning, all of it, we are going to bump elbows a bit. And I also think you can see this just through cycles of time. There have been many bright lights that came to this world to be love. And unfortunately, many of them have been crucified or assassinated. I think we're in a timeline where we don't have to all go through that anymore, but we're going to feel the heat of some crucifixion-like judgment coming from some family members, coming from people we know, coming from maybe somebody in a random parking lot at the grocery store, because there's still a thing like road rage and people just act out their confusion. And we can say, why did that happen to me? And then we can go through and we can say, what was my good intention to be a good driver, to be, we need to walk through these things and understanding that sometimes the light even attracts more criticism. The light is like, think about a light at night on your house and all the bugs are just compelled and they're driven because they're attracted to the light. I think that which is living inside people outside of the light is being drawn to the light.
Yeah.
And that light can be love, kindness, compassion, truth, beliefs. It can be anything that any one of us right here, right now are embodying. And that also can threaten the bugs. I don't want to call people bugs, but it can threaten people who are attracted to have an experience with us. Even my neighbor wouldn't think that he was attracted to have that experience with me, but at some level, our magnetism drew us together into that experience. And so I just want to say very kindly and lovingly to you guys and to anybody listening, when you're that light, when you're that force of light, when you're the Christ consciousness yourself, and you feel like the heat of that energy of other people's unresolved conflicts and energies and judgments and beliefs are coming at you in some way, this is part of what Sharon you're talking about, is we're going to have to learn how to move differently. Like I never saw in the story of Jesus that he was tempted, but he didn't throw off his Christ consciousness and say, all right, come on, he did because I think with a great deal of power comes a great deal of responsibility, as we know. And that doesn't make it easy for light workers and light warriors. We're the ones that know that entering the duality and the judgment and the shame and blame is just mucking it up even more and creating more pain for everybody. When we stay in our place of truth and in our hearts, the way we know how to be, our integrity, just that frequency alone could be a trigger for somebody else. And they might point the fingers at us. And I'm not immune to that. And I'd imagine that you guys aren't immune to that, in all ways in your lives right now. And I imagine that some of our listeners, people who tune into these podcasts, are saying, I know exactly what she's talking about. And in the political climate and the COVID climate and everything climate that we've got going on, there is that soup going on. And yet there are lighthouses in the soup who are doing their very best to be in their integrity. And somebody that I listen to in podcasts, it wasn't always my language, but I've heard him talk about, I'm an imperfect human being. I think we're imperfectly perfect. I think we have to allow ourselves to be imperfectly perfect, made in God's image. We are perfect and we have human imperfections. And so sometimes I also know people can say to people who are in their light, trying to be in their integrity, doing the best we can. It doesn't mean that we're perfect humans. It doesn't mean that we're going to just be able to shower, wave the magic wand and get your two neighbors to feel love. And everybody's going to hug in your cul-de-sac tonight, right? And have like a love fest. But it does mean that you can do what Renee is talking about, is say, I know my intentions. I know my heart. I know who I am. And even if they don't know it, I'm going to know it. And I'm feeling that more than ever, because I cannot make the conflict that's in other people around me right now. I've done everything I can in my life to show how I live. I publish books that they can certainly read. I'm in a few podcasts, right? They can see how I think and how I feel. And nothing that I do, I don't have the power to change their creative power to be who they feel they need to be right now. So I have to keep staying in the truth and the light that I am, like you. And we also can know that somehow in the sea of soup, the vibrational soup that's playing out, there's probably going to be more judgments or some conflict as we bump wings, trying to get free, trying to rise. And it might be a little confusing for a little bit of time, but if we can stay in this place, I know who I am. I know what my heart is. I know what my intentions are. I think it gives us a better compass when it gets more and more confusing around us right now. Yeah.
Could I just what?
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add one thing, and if we can stay in that vibration, that higher vibration, then we can, in fact, whether it plays out at a personality level or not, we can, in fact, send love to the people that we are in conflict to. It does heal them. It does heal us, because we are as one with them. So there is no them and us. So as they are, we are. So the thing is that I do think that we can, as we witness the divine in others,
Mm.
we become who we truly are. And it is in the witnessing that they are divine beings also. In their personality ego, we could be playing these games back and forth, whatever, but truly they're of God, we are of God, and you are me, and I am you. And so
Very true.
really no separation. And the conflict they have, so the conflict that they have with you is a belief system,
Mm.
strictly that. You have some beliefs, they have some beliefs, it doesn't resonate, but they're not in conflict with you, because God does not have conflict with God. It's not possible. It is not possible.
Wow.
They are who you are. And so I think that as we kind of, and that's what I mean by untethering, as you and I and everybody else realize that we don't have to truly, and it sounds rough, but it's really caring that they care that we're aligned with our belief system. We cannot, you have to be in your integrity, they have to be in theirs. And then I think once we really realize that they are of God as we are, we're just going to naturally, all of those beliefs, right, wrong, it doesn't matter. It's all going to move into the light. It's all going to be as one in unity. And I really know this to be. I know this to be. It's just a matter of getting there.
I agree with you 1,000%. Like I've always said, I look at it, and a lot of people use the word spiritual warfare. I don't like the word warfare. I like game. It is a game to me. It's a spiritual game, a chess match, and the light has already won. I know it, like breathing. I know the light has already won. I don't know how it's going to unfold. I think I wrote an email to Marie like this earlier this week. I don't know the unfoldment. I mean, you hear all these predictions coming, even from channeled messages, and I was like, I don't know. I can't see the future. I can't see how it unfolds. But the one thing I know, like breathing, the light has already won. And I am rejoicing. I mean, you guys should have seen me this weekend. I was had my party music. I was cleaning and dancing and just, I am in 5D. I'm solidly in 5D and have been since March 2020. And it's like, yeah, even though people are poking at me in the 3D, like my two neighbors and all that, it doesn't, I mean, I'm like, I felt like today I said, like, with the two of them, because it's like, it's one thing. It was one, then I found out another neighbor's upset with me about something totally different because I didn't quarantine myself. I went to California early part of January, and I didn't self quarantine when I came back. So that's why my other neighbor is mad at me because I didn't self quarantine. Are you anyway? So I'm like, hey, I said, you know what, you guys, love you guys. I'm gonna do me, and you guys have issues, and it's you guys' issues. It's not my issue because I love you guys, and I'm gonna keep sending you love. I'm gonna keep being kind. I'm gonna keep being me. So, but it's just, and oh, what I wanted to say with Marie, when you were bringing up Jesus as an example, don't forget, Jesus one time got mad. He went into that temple and he knocked down all the tables. He's like, so Jesus did have his moment, okay?
And we have to remember, we're like, this one person saying imperfect perfection.
Right.
We are the perfection, and we have these moments where we have to emote, we have to, let out in the ways that we do. Maybe Christ did it his own way. But we all have our own ways, and then we reset. Then we use the tools, we use the skills, we remember, I know my heart. I love that from you, Renee. And I love you, Caroline, too, saying you do you and I'll do me. And that doesn't have to be separation in the way I feel you're saying it is. I honor the divine in you. It's the divine in me. And we each need to be that the way we feel called. And I think we need to call up these tools after we allow ourselves some emotions. Because, when you don't allow that stuff to pass through you, it finds a way in your cellular system, and then you have other issues to deal with. So there is something very healing in the expression and not repression. But those of us that are in these spiritual practices and have these tools, it doesn't mean we're immune to tension and judgment and all these things. It just means we have the tools. We witness the wave of energy coming our way, right? We feel it. We have our response to it. And then we also can ground, center, do some of what Patrick showed. I would recommend that. And but have our own tools. However we do that, go into the breath, ground in our hearts, ground with Gaia, ask for angelic support in that moment to breathe in clean, pure, divine oxygen and breathe out all the uncomfortable feelings and emotions. And know that our intention is one of love and unity on this planet right now. And it's very recalibrating. It's very resetting. And I find my foundation and again and again. And, that's from before I got on this podcast with you today. That's when I leave this podcast with you today. Life is all around us. And this is on the move. And like we're all acknowledging, there's a tremendous amount of energy right now. And I think we have to allow ourselves to be the best divine human, using Renee's language, that we can be, and understanding that we're also could get triggered. And then we go into our tools, and we have some responsibility to ourselves to try and maintain the integrity we have in our heart centers to the best of our ability. And I thank each one of you for the mirrors that you are of this incredible heart-centered unity consciousness and the personal integrity that we are intending for our lives. And we're rippling this out right now in this conversation. And it's going to touch a lot of people's lives who are feeling some versions of this going on too. And we're rising. I mean, together we are rising. So thank you, all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you to our listeners who spend time with us and invite us into your homes and your hearts to hear our experiences and our wisdom sharings, because we are all one. We are of God. And that's part of what the sounds of circles are, right? We are these living sounds of circles that are interconnected in every way, and we're on our way home. And so I want to invite people to find us at Whole Soul Mastery on YouTube. You can find us at Color the Magic on YouTube. And you can find us on some alternative platforms, search Whole Soul Mastery. And until next time, we send you lots and lots of love and blessings from our hearts to yours.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.